2026 has been an amazing year for Warhammer 40k, with multiple new video games on the horizon and 11th edition just around the corner. But before I wholly devoted my life to serving the Imperium of Mankind, I was a guardian of the last city in Destiny and Destiny 2. Destiny was created by Bungie, the same studio who made Halo over 10 years ago, and I've spent thousands of hours in this world slaying aliens and fighting the darkness. But on May 21st, 2026, on the same day as Warhammer Skulls, Bungie announced that the update releasing on June 9th of the same year would be Destiny 2's final live service update. And more news has surfaced, revealing that Destiny 3 isn't in the works. There aren't any other Destiny projects in the works, and Bungie is focusing on their new game, Marathon, which isn't really doing well either. But for me, the worst thing about this entire situation is that the community built around Destiny is going to continue to fall apart. And this isn't anything new either. After Lightfall, myself and many other players left Destiny 2 behind because of a shift in tone, changes to the core gameplay loop, and continuous sunsetting or removal of content that was previously in the game. And this great departure accelerated after Destiny 2's final real expansion, The Final Shape, which should have been the game's final expansion before Bungie began working on, say, Destiny 3, but we're not here to talk about that right now. I'm actually here to talk to you about what I lost when I left Destiny behind and what I gained by embracing another community. I also wanted to share some games that share some similar mechanics or themes with Destiny that have helped to keep me hooked to them for thousands of hours and keep me coming back for more. This video isn't sponsored and it isn't an ad. I just want to share my story with people who are probably going through the same thing that I went through when leaving Destiny left a big void in my life. When I quit Destiny 2 several years ago, the thing that I missed the most about the game was actually the community built around the game. So leaving that behind was extremely difficult. And this was surprising to me because the actual gameplay of Destiny 2 is very unique. It's a first-person looter shooter with multiplayer aspects that for whatever reason just isn't tapped into by any other game development studio. Bungie made something that was truly unique. But it was never the gameplay, as unique as it was, that kept me coming back to Destiny, nor was it the constant live service updates that forced me to return to the game because I was addicted and wanted to grind for new gear. No, instead it was the community. It was browsing memes online, sharing my experiences with my friends, and raiding with my clan every single week. These were the cornerstones that kept me coming back to Destiny. When I quit Destiny, it wasn't really the lack of the actual game leaving a void in my life. It was more so the fact that I effectively broke up with the community in general. My coping mechanism for this was Warhammer 40k Darktide, which was really starting to hit its stride as a Destiny-like looter shooter where you had to rely on RNG and grinding in order to get the best weapons in the game. Which is pretty ironic because nowadays loot is literally the least important thing in Darktide. Initially, I thought that it was the action-packed, moment-to-moment, intense gameplay that kept me coming back to Darktide, but it was actually the community that kept me coming back, and not Darktide's community, but overall, the Warhammer 40k community. In playing Darktide, I'd stumbled upon a community that has existed for dozens of years, something that is ancient and well beyond the scope of the Destiny community. Naturally, I embraced the community entirely, and not because Warhammer 40k Darktide sold me on the 40k community, more so because the community has this long-standing endurance and transcends any particular video game. Warhammer is so much more than just Darktide, Space Marine 2, or Total War Warhammer. It's all of the art behind the novels that expand the entire universe, it's the tabletop game, and at the end of the day, it's one of the biggest and most renowned communities on the internet. So if you're trying to fill the void that leaving the Destiny community behind has left in your soul, then consider embracing a community that transcends any particular video game. But speaking of video games, there are definitely some Warhammer games that you're going to want to try because they share some elements with Destiny that I instantly recognized and appreciated. The first of these games is Space Marine 2, which is a third-person game where you play as a Space Marine, and the actual gameplay feels like you're playing Dark Souls, but with guns. There's a lot of depth to this game to include a campaign, a PvP game mode, and a PvE game mode, all completely separate from one another. But what I want to highlight is the customization available in this game, from the cosmetics that your Space Marine is equipped with, to your build, and to the heroic weapons that you use, which function very similar to exotic weapons from Destiny 2. Space Marine 2 is now packed with literally thousands of hours of progression whenever you factor in the prestige leveling system, upgrading every weapon available to your Space Marines, or unlocking all of the cosmetics available for each of the different classes. I want to hone in on heroic weapon variants, which act very similarly to exotic weapons in Destiny 2. Sometimes they might be a direct upgrade to said weapon, but most of the time they represent a different playstyle or a more challenging playstyle in order to get more reward out of that weapon. A good example of this is the Bolt Sniper Rifle and its heroic variant Wrapped, which nerfs the actual firepower of the weapon and the ammo, but it increases its headshot multiplier and it allows you to refund ammunition every time you get a headshot. Does this sniper sound familiar at all? Next up is Warhammer 40k Darktide, which feels a lot like Destiny when you're only comparing the first-person nature of the game, the amazing feeling shooting, and the smooth movement. But Darktide introduces a layer of melee combat that isn't seen in Destiny at all. Because of the melee system and various other factors, Darktide does a really good job of differentiating how the game is played depending on which class you're playing as. This replayability that this introduces to the game is extremely important because Darktide is the kind of game, beyond its conventional progression, that requires hundreds or thousands of hours of gameplay experience in order to get good enough to do the end game content that the game has to offer. Both Darktide and Space Marine 2 continue to get consistent content updates, but neither game is monetized nearly as heavily as Destiny 2 ever was, so these aren't conventional live service games where you're getting something new every 2 weeks or every month. Darktide releases content quarterly, while Space Marine 2 releases content every other month, with massive content updates coming out every 4 months or so. Now, if you play Darktide and you fall in love with the melee combat system and you don't mind stepping out of the sci-fi genre and heading into fantasy, then look no further than Vermintide 2. Vermintide 2 is a finished game. You shouldn't approach the game expecting massive content updates to be released in the future, but what you can expect is a very dedicated player base. And the main reason why people continue to go back to Vermintide 2, including myself, is because Fat Shark has managed to nail first-person melee combat. It's probably the most refined and polished first-person melee combat system in the entire industry, especially when it comes to co-op PvE games. Just like Darktide, Vermintide 2 is the kind of game where you get a lot more out of it when you've put a lot of hours into the game. Not just because of character progression, but because when you get better at the game, it just genuinely feels really good to play. If you want to learn more about what these amazing Warhammer games have to offer, or you're just more interested in the broader Warhammer community as a whole, then consider subscribing because I cover Warhammer video games almost exclusively and I talk about Warhammer news all the time. As always, I appreciate your support. This has been Jefficus, the Emperor Protects.